Hello everyone, and welcome to the 5th installment in my Capstone album review series, a series where I dissect a bunch of my favorite albums using the knowledge that I've gained from the sound recording and technology program at Montgomery County Community College. If you missed part 4, where I covered the 1991 sophomore album from A Tribe Called Quest, The Low End Theory, I'll leave a video card for that up here, but without further ado, let's get into it. Today, I want to dive into the 1994 trip-hop golden standard that is Dummy by Portishead. Portishead is an electronic music group that's out of Bristol, England, comprised of multi-instrumentalist and producer Jeff Barrow, guitarist Adrian Utley, as well as songwriter and vocalist Beth Gibbons. The trio released 3 full-length albums under the Portishead name, while Beth Gibbons went on to release several projects that were under her own name, such as the 2002 collab album between her and Talk Talk's Paul Webb, Out of Season, as well as her 2024 solo outing, Lives Outgrown, an album that landed very high on my year-end list for 2024. Regarding Portishead specifically, though, the trio managed to consistently deliver on new sounds and musical identities with each of their studio releases. Dummy comes off particularly lonely and lovesick, merging sampled hip-hop drums with desolate synth and organ chords underneath breathtaking vocal performances from Beth Gibbons. The self-titled album takes that same lovesick energy and transforms it into something that flirts with unfiltered obsession, put in a surprisingly theatrical context. And third features more acoustic instrumentation and heavy influence from styles like krautrock and experimental music. All 3 are very much worth checking out in their own right, but in the case of Portishead or even trip-hop broadly, there really is no better introduction, in my personal opinion, than Dummy. The album begins with Mysterons, a flawless tone setter for the record that kicks things off with this bass-heavy ascending Rhodes melody that serves as the backdrop for most of the song. The drums that kick in are put through some heavy filtering as well, with the rolling snares specifically sounding akin to that of a rattlesnake. A similar effect is also applied to the skeletal guitar part during the hook, which serves as a fantastic complement to the chilling vocal delivery of Beth Gibbons, who sings of a relationship that's seemingly going nowhere but is getting dragged to an inevitable separation. The specific line, "all for nothing did you really want," infers the idea that this person of interest wants everything and will end up throwing away person after person in pursuit of their perfect one, setting a pretty grim tone for the relationship from Gibbons' perspective. Sour Times, one of the album's lead singles, adds even further to the lovesick feelings by focusing its lyrics on someone who seems to not believe in love outside of one specific person who brings them a sense of hope and comfort, feeling that they'd be forgotten by the rest of the world without them. It's also the first song in the album that's primarily built from samples, specifically the upright bass line and fluttered strings taken from Lalo Schifrin's Danube Incident, as well as the chopped up drums taken from Spin It Jig by Smokey Brooks. The following Strangers takes an almost entirely different musical shape and structure, with it quickly switching between its introductory combination of buzzing sub-bass and heavy drums taken from Donny Hathaway's magnificent Sanctuary band, the latter of which is supplemented by a brilliant reverse reverb trail, to a low-fidelity acoustic guitar and vocal section over top of some nicely placed ambient sounds. The song switches between its main, more aggressive instrumental and some splice interludes a few times, and even features a reprise of the lyrics from the aforementioned guitar section as a replacement for the song's last hook. It's such a fascinating song structure to me, and it's a big part of why it's one of my personal favorites off of the album. It Could Be Sweet feels more in line with a 90s R&B and low-key electronic pop hit, bringing a uniquely intimate vibe to an otherwise dark album experience. Its gorgeous Rhodes chords and understated verse vocals from Beth Gibbons would feel right at home with any of Sade's classic records, Love Deluxe coming to mind especially. Also love the thematic focus on the importance of working through one's own insecurities and fears before being able to truly love someone, with the song's title being in reference to a relationship that theoretically could end up feeling quite blissful if both parties are able to emotionally mature. However, the following Wandering Star pulls us right back into the depths, a phrasing I deliberately chose given the allusions to a black, empty void reserved for those who only live to feed off others, a seemingly common occurrence, at least in a romantic sense, for Gibbons in the song. The Hammond organ provided by Gary Baldwin reaches such a low frequency that one could easily confuse it for a synth bass. It's a really cool sound and one that pairs surprisingly nicely with the scratched horn and harmonica sample taken from Eric Burdon and War's Magic Mountain. Depending on the specific pressing of the record you have, or if you're listening to Dummy digitally, the next track featured is called It's a Fire. In a way, you can kind of see why it got added to the album later, as it's definitely the most straightforward song on it, though that's not to say it's bad or uninteresting whatsoever. It's a very pretty ballad in which the Hammond organ makes a return, and Gibbons sings of having to wear a mask for others, warning the people close to her not to follow in her footsteps. Numb gets us back on track with the original release of Dummy, and features a pretty oddball choice in rhythm in comparison with the rest of the album. The drum kit played in the track mostly sounds like what you would expect from a typical trip-hop song, with the major exception of its snare drum ringing out like it's some kind of church bell. It's honestly one of the only times I've heard this much resonance come out of a snare outside of more modern experimental pieces, such as Screenshot by Swans, and I think it's been pulled off pretty flawlessly. I'm also a huge fan of all the record scratching and warped ambient sounds that color the background of the track as well, some of which being minuscule segments of I've Got a Woman by Ray Charles, of all things, perhaps most well known as being the iconic sample behind Kanye West's Gold Digger. We are once again back in ballad territory with the breathtaking Roads, the only song that I had the privilege of seeing live as part of the encore of Beth Gibbons' most recent live tour for Lives Outgrown. On an instrumental front, the song is centered around these unbelievably heart-wrenching Rhodes chords that have a powerful tremolo effect applied to them, and as the song progresses, we hear these swells of orchestration alongside the addition of a bass guitar and a similarly tremoloed electric guitar. It all coalesces into a piece of music that, for lack of any more accurate description, soars like some sort of majestic, mythical bird. This combined with Gibbons' understated and near broken down vocal performance, desperately asking why the path she chose to live her own life feels so wrong, adds such an intense emotional gut punch that feels almost unrivaled among both Portishead and Beth Gibbons' respective discographies. Another of my personal favorites, though for very different reasons, is Pedestal, a track with this driving ride groove alongside some of the muddiest bass of the entire album. The trumpet solo that plays after the song's second verse is immaculate as well, bringing forth a surprising initiative and confidence to the overall tone of the song, something that's complemented exceptionally well by Gibbons' quiet yet oddly theatrical vocal delivery, somewhat sarcastically wallowing in how she's been abandoned by someone who's seemingly stumbling while trying to find excuses to cover for themselves. The penultimate cut, Biscuit, is another example of some intricate drum work that continues to impress me to this day. The drums are sampled from James Brown's Say It Loud, I'm Black and Proud, and substantially slowed down, as are the horns sampled from I'll Never Fall in Love Again by Johnny Ray. However, on the second beat in the first of every 4 bars, there's a heavy hit of sub bass that kind of pulls the entire beat back, creating this nasty groove that transforms an otherwise slow and predictable drum sample into an immensely engaging one. I also love the slowed down vocal snippet from the aforementioned Johnny Ray song, repeating its title and cleverly tying it into Biscuit's heartbroken lyrics. Dummy's grand finale comes in the form of Glory Box, another of the album's lead singles and easily one of the most beloved songs of Portishead's whole career. The song is largely built on a groove and accompanying strings taken from Isaac Hayes' Ike's Rap 2 Help Me Love, with the added bonus of an iconic descending guitar part that breathes so much life into Gibbons' soaring chorus, demanding, "Give me a reason to love you, give me a reason to be a woman." There isn't any other word I could use to describe it better than explosive, like something snapped inside of Gibbons as a result of the countless trials that finding love has put her through. I'd be remiss if I didn't also mention the fact that this song has one of the nastiest guitar solos I've ever heard, something that I can definitely be a bit picky about sometimes. It's such an unbelievable finish to a landmark album. The chilling vocal performances, lonely aesthetic, and head-nodding beats of Dummy are as one-of-a-kind as they are massively influential within the spheres of both electronic music and pop, whether that's in the cerebral sounds of groups like Massive Attack or the wide appeal of modern pop artists like Lana Del Rey. The trio's clever use of sampling gave them an appeal both within hip-hop culture as well as the alternative music scene of the 90s, a time that I hold in high regard just for how consistently artists were pushing boundaries in a similar fashion to Portishead. The fact that Dummy was the group's debut record, despite having all the ambition of a project that you'd expect to come years after trial and error within any band's career, is mind-boggling to me. Not only that, but the group found a way to make their short studio discography sound so diverse and fruitful as a listener. I genuinely cannot recommend them and Beth Gibbons' solo material enough. Let me know if you enjoy them as well in the comments down below. Next video, I'm going to be talking about an album that is by far the newest in this series that I'll be doing, and one that I think is surprisingly underrated amongst a lot of music listeners today. I've got extremely high praise to give it, and I cannot wait to put it all out there soon. That being said, I'm going to end this video here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one.